reading and working with graphs. Here we shall be discussing functions, data, graphs, natural, semi-log, log scales, difference between marginal and incremental concept, slope concept. That means everything that we use in economics. Graphs are very important for understanding very basic concepts, and these graphs are required even for explaining the relationship between various macroeconomic variables, which are explained through laws, principles, and theories. The relationship is shown through two variables depicting along x and y axis respectively. When we have more than two variables, we can use at the most three-dimensional diagram, the understanding of which is very difficult. That means algebra is going to be used for multi-variable situations. We are going to use the following techniques and tools for this purpose. Function. As you know, function shows the relationship between one or more variables. One of the variable is dependent variable and the other variables are independent variables or cause variables. We may have algebraic expressions that we generally use in algebra, like Qx is a function of Px, where Qx stands for quantity. It may be quantity demanded or supplied. Px stands for the price of commodity X. Demand function and supply functions have applications for such algebraic expressions. Similar algebraic expression can be used in case of cost function and production function also. And we have tabular expression where we show the functional relationship between two variables in a tabular form. You must have studied about demand schedule and supply schedule, showing tabular representation of various possible prices and the corresponding quantities demanded or supplied in the market. And these schedules can be shown for one consumer or producer, or even for multiple consumers and producers or suppliers. Then we have graphical expression. Here we show the relationship between the variables in graphical form. You must have studied in demand chapter that demand curve is nothing but graphical representation of the demand curve. So that means whatever relationship that we study through demand schedule can also be plotted on the graph paper. Individual demand curve has been shown in figure 3.1, where price of the commodity is shown along y-axis or vertical axis. Quantity demanded is shown on the horizontal axis or x-axis. This demand curve is linear, but we can think of non-linear relationship also between price and the quantity demanded. Similarly, we can think of individual supply curve. Next subtopic will be types of data and graphs. We are generally using two types of data. The first one is time series data. Here data is shown over a period of time for any macroeconomic variables. Under time series graph, we show the relationship between the time, which is generally shown on the x-axis, and the other variable is shown on the y-axis. These graphs show the variable's value, direction of change, speed of change, and the trend. Then we have cross-sectional data. When a number of different observations on one variable for different places are shown for a particular point of time, the data that we get is called as cross-sectional data. It may be for different companies or different products or any such criteria may be adopted, but the time remains the same. We can have scatter diagrams to show this relationship through figure 3.2. And this scatter diagram may be of the form as shown in A, B, C, D, E, or F part of this figure. While A part of the figure shows no specific relationship between the two variables, B part of the diagram show positive relationship. C part of the diagram show negative relationship between the two variables. D part of the diagram shows positive linear relationship. E part of the diagram shows negative linear relationship. And F part of this figure 3.2 shows that the relationship is positive in the beginning. After reaching the maximum point or turning point, the relationship becomes inverse, and this relationship is negative, or you can say curvilinear. We can have different scales used along the two axes. It can be natural scale, where equal distance represent equal magnitude along the two axes. Absolute changes are shown in this form. In the case of logarithmic scale, we plot relative changes or rate of change. So instead of plotting the original data, we plot logarithm of the variables. When logarithms of both the variables are taken, we get logarithmic chart. Next type of scale would be semi-logarithmic or ratio scale. In the case of semi-log scale, logarithm of only one of the variable is taken, while other variable is taken on the natural scale. This is how we get semi-logarithmic chart or ratio chart. Such ratio scale graphs can be used to study relative changes or percentage changes or rate of change of a certain variable at two different points of time. In a way, it gives a true picture of the changes that take place over a time period. A steeper semi-log curve will imply greater rate of change, while rising or falling curve will indicate increasing or decreasing rate of change. Further, rising or falling straight line shape will imply constant rate of rise or decline as the case may be. Now let us study little bit of application part of whatever we have discussed so far. We can use these graphs for illustrating economic models. And in such economic models, we can have three types of relationship. The first one is direct or positive relationship. Here the two variables move in the same direction as shown in figure 3.3. Price of the commodity and quantity supplied is one such example. Number of units of variable factors and output is another example. Output and cost is yet another example. Inverse or negative relationship. The curve having negative slope is downward sloping as shown in figure 3.4. Here the variable along the two axes move in opposite directions. Then we have the concept of maxima and minima. At the maximum point of the curve, tangent becomes parallel to x-axis and the curve becomes flat. It has zero slope. That means marginal value is zero. And before that, marginal values are positive and we can call it increasing function. In figure 3.5a, m is the maximum point and beyond this point the function starts decreasing. Furthermore, at the minimum point the curve is also again flat with zero slope and zero marginal value. Till minima is achieved, marginal values are negative and beyond point of minimum value, say n in figure 3.5b, function starts increasing. Now let us study the difference between marginal and incremental concepts, which are very frequently used in economics. We all know that resources are limited, so every additional unit of resource is to be utilized by the managers with utmost care. A decision about additional investment is taken on the basis of additional return from that investment. An investment is worthwhile if it causes total revenue to rise more than total cost. Or we can say marginal revenue is more than marginal cost. And the firm should stop the process of production and sale at the point where MR becomes equal to MC. Here there exists no tendency to change the production since the firm gets the maximum profits. Similarly, in a decision to employ additional worker or machine, one needs to know the additional output expected therefrom. The resources should be allocated or engaged in such a manner that the ratio of marginal returns and marginal costs of different uses of a given resource or of various resources in a given use is the same. In other words, the value added by the last unit of the resource is same in all the cases. This principle is called as equi-marginal principle. If this equity is not established, the decision maker can add to utility or profit by reshuffling the resources or inputs. In economics also we use this term marginal for such additional magnitude of return of output. We can think of terms like marginal return on investment, marginal product of labor, marginal product of machine, marginal sale of advertisement, marginal cost of production, marginal revenue from output, and marginal utility of consumption. The corresponding concept dealing with equilibria of more than one commodity or factor is called as equimarginalism. According to this principle, an input or commodity must be allocated among different uses in such a manner that the value added by the last unit is same in all the uses. We can have many examples of equi-marginal principle, say for a multi-commodity consumer, that means a consumer who consumes several commodities. Such consumer will be in state of equilibrium when marginal utility is obtained from every commodity is the same. Similarly, if we consider multi-factor employer, that means a producer or employer implying several factors of production, the equilibrium situation will occur at the point where marginal productivities of different factors of production are same, that is MP1 is equal to MP2 is equal to MP3 and so on. Likewise, multi-plant monopolist, that is sole producer producing through different plants having different cost of production. The equilibrium situation will be where marginal cost of production is same for every such machine used in the process of production, or MC1 equal to MC2 is equal to MC3 and so on up to MCN. A multi-market seller, that is price discriminator, monopolist, will be in equilibrium when marginal revenue received is same in every market. That is MR1 equal to MR2 equal to MR3 and so on equal to MRN. And finally, a firm selling many products will be in equilibrium when marginal profit earned from different products is the same. That is M pi 1 equal to M pi 2 is equal to M pi 3 and so on up to M pi n. We can easily understand that how equilibrium is arrived at through such equity principles, and these are discussed in details in the subsequent chapters under different topics and subtopics. In case we do not have equality of these marginal concept, the economic agent will not be in equilibrium, and the economic agent will concentrate more on the factor, product or commodity or market where such values are favorable. That means if it is cost, it should be lesser. If it is revenue or productivity or utility, it should be higher. Even if it is profit, it should be higher. And when there is more focus on that product or factor, then the marginal value will keep on changing. In case of cost, it will start rising. In case of revenue, utility, productivity, or profit, it will keep on falling. And the equilibrium will be restored once equality is established. In case of marginal concept, we change the dependent variable, say cost, revenue, or profit, by unit change in the independent variable. So here the change in dependent variable, say cost, revenue, or profit, with respect to a unit change in the independent variable is considered. But sometime independent variable may be subject to chunk changes or big changes. For example, the output may change due to change in the whole process, pattern, combination of factors, or technology. And such changes are not measurable in unit terms. Here, the concept of marginalism is replaced by incrementalism. Incremental concept involves the estimation of impact of a decision. Here we are using two fundamental economic concepts, incremental revenue and incremental cost. Incremental revenue will be additional revenue earned from computerization or any such new process, while additional cost of installing computer facilities or any such process may be termed as incremental cost. Till incremental revenue exceeds incremental cost, the process will continue and the state of equilibrium will be arrived at when incremental revenue becomes equal to incremental cost. We must remember that all marginal concepts are incremental concept, but all incremental concept may not be marginal concept because marginal concepts are having unit changes, while in case of incremental concept we have big changes or chunk changes. Table 3.2 shows the difference between marginal and incremental concepts. The first difference is marginal concept is expressed in terms of a unit change, while incremental concept is expressed in terms of a bulk change. In case of marginal concept, the reference is to one independent variable. But in the case of incremental concept, generally we have more than one independent variable. For example, if we are moving from traditional to modern technology, numerous changes may take place. So there will be more than one independent variable change. Marginal concept is more specific, while incremental concept is more general. Finally, all marginal concepts are incremental concept, but all incremental concepts are not marginal concept. The incremental ratio is the approximation to the true marginal value. And as the degree of approximation improves, the change in independent variable gets very small. We have now one more concept in this chapter, slope of a curve. By slope, we mean the value along the y-axis changing from a change in a unit along x-axis. The slope of a curve is the change in the value of variable measured on the y-axis divided by the change in the value of variable which is measured on x-axis. Mathematically, we can say slope is vertical change divided by horizontal change. That is delta y divided by delta x. The slope of a curve keeps on declining when the curve becomes flatter. Here, for every increase in y-axis, increase in x-axis is small. For a steeper curve, for every unit increase in y-axis, increase in x-axis is large, as you can see through figure 3.6a. Here the slope is 0, horizontal line, but elasticity of demand is infinity. For vertical line, slope is infinity. Slope, it is given by perpendicular upon base, tangent theta. We know that tangent 0 is 0. So for horizontal line, slope is 0. Elasticity of demand is infinity. For vertical line, slope is infinity and elasticity of demand is 0. In figure 3.7, we see three upward sloping curves implying positive slopes, while in 3.7b, we show three downward sloping curve indicating negative slopes. If you look at figure 3.7a, you will find curve number 1 is linear, that rises at constant rate. That means slope is constant. Curve 2 is steeper. That means it rises at increasing rate. That means slope is rising. While curve 3 is flatter and it rises at decreasing rate and slope is falling. When we look at curve number 4, it is linear and it falls at constant rate. Budget constraint having negative slope is one such example. Curve number 5 is flatter, that falls at decreasing rate and that means slope is falling. Curve number 6 is steeper and falls at increasing rate. That means slope is rising. You must have heard about production possibility curve that has negative slope. So this is example of curve number 6.